With Americans divided over sending their children back to school or not during the COVID-19 pandemic, and teachers demand school districts close schools and keep virtual instruction, which many feel is inadequate to children's needs, all of them are ignoring the real victims of the school closures or the prolonged lockdowns ordered by all state governors, the children themselves. And a growing number of them are taking their own lives due to the fact that schools, places most children look forward to going, are still closed, which causes kids who miss their teachers, miss being present in person, miss their friends, miss any fun and excitement, into depression, withdrawal, and sometimes suicide. They have nothing to look forward to, thus situations with depression and chronic depression will set in after being stuck at home and socially isolated for the past 3, 4, 5 months. And they feel that this will be forever, and if news reports saying that schools will be closed for the next month or until spring 2021, a growing number of children and youth decide to take their own lives because they're socially isolated and in pain of missing what is good about life, what is worth living. Children such as 11-year-old boy Landon Fuller was one of them, who realized that he may never see his friends or his teacher or school or for a long time. He couldn't deal with the pain of being socially isolated anymore and wanted relief and decided to end his life. The following report I'm going to show you was broadcast by New Mexican TV news channel KOB4, and it was featured by the Colt Bullock Show.
The isolation that comes with social distancing can take a toll on anyone. The couple in Hobbs believed it played a big role in their 11-year-old son taking his own life. They hope sharing his story will save lives, and they did so with our Kai Porter.
We were invited to a taping of the Colt Bullock Show as James and Katrina Fuller talked about losing their 11-year-old son Landon to suicide.
Landon was very energetic and outgoing, and he was smart and funny, and he wanted to be everybody's friend, and he wanted to help people, and he loved sports, and he loved his family, and he loved his dog.
He was a curious kid. He always wanted to know about everything, always questioned everything.
In April, Landon rode his bike to a field near his family's house in Hobbs and ended his life. His parents believe social isolation caused by the COVID-19 pandemic was behind their son's suicide, based on a journal entry they found after his death.
I think the big question we all have is why, and we won't ever know the reason why. The only thing that I was able to find was in his journal was that he had wrote that he was going mad from staying at home all the time, and that he just wanted to be able to go to school and play outside with his friends. So that was the only thing that I can imagine what was going through his head at that time. And if I had read that before, I wouldn't have thought that he was planning on taking his own life, because I think we're all feeling a little crazy right now.
The Fullers say there were no obvious signs their son was struggling, no red flags. That's why they're now urging parents everywhere to talk to their kids about how they're feeling, even if they seem fine.
We didn't know, like I said, we didn't see it coming. We didn't know. I mean, he never was diagnosed with depression or anything. So, I mean, it wasn't a case of mental illness with him. You know, it was just something strong.
A mental health crisis in the moment.
And they're using their tragedy to raise awareness about youth suicide and the need for more resources to prevent it.
I hope his story can at least save one life. If so, then his death wasn't in vain.
The saddest part of the story was that this kid was energetic, curious, into sports, into he wanted to be a law enforcement officer. And he, at one time, cosplayed as Goku from the anime Dragon Ball Z, which is deeply personal, since most, if not all, anime cons have either cancelled or postponed until 2021. But the school closures took that curiosity, that energy away from him. A whole routine they used to have in school and before the lockdowns had been taken away. It was initially supposed to be for 2 weeks, But now state governors and unelected health officials, divorced from the actual doctors and nurses that are there on the front lines, which has mostly calmed down, are too busy looking at reactions from Twitter and social media and watching CNN instead of serving the residents, doing the research on their own. There has been many reports that suicides, including youth suicides and drug overdoses, are outpacing the deaths from COVID-19. People who have routines like going to sports, playing football, soccer, going to school, having fun with peers and friends, going to events they used to love. Those things have been taken away because of governors instead of keeping their word on keeping the lockdowns for 2 weeks. They kept kicking the can down the road repeatedly, week after week, month after month, until they admit in the end that they refuse to fully reopen until there's a widely available vaccine, which is in practice unlikely until fall 2021, which is unrealistic because of the fact that these lockdowns imposed by state governors have caused irreversible damage to the country. For those who say Zoom, Discord, social media is the same thing and can give you the same benefits and can be replacements, I am sorry. They're not. There is no replacement for real-life in-person interaction, no matter how much you or other people insist. And virtual alternatives are a poor substitute. Now, Landon Fuller's parents said that there were no obvious signs that their son was struggling. There's a good reason for that. Men and boys have been socialized not to open up and not be vulnerable because being vulnerable equates to being weak. This has been taught by peer socialization, their parents and friends, in the media implicitly and explicitly. This is why many children like Landon didn't speak up in fear that they'll get a negative reaction from their parents. And on the internet, when people do open up about what they're going through with the long-term lockdowns and the prolonged lockdowns, missing some events they're looking forward to, and now fall events are being taken away. Being stuck at home for months, they get told that the virus doesn't care about what you're going through, or you're selfish, or your needs to go into an event will endanger everyone. Even though it's clear that the COVID-19 disease mostly affects persons over 60 years old, the obese, those that have diabetes, or other high risk elements, or if you're already sick. Most of the deaths that occurred with COVID-19 are mostly in that range. Children and other people under 35 show no symptoms or mild symptoms, even though the virus is more contagious than the regular cold or regular flu. Basically, all those people who were into causes of mental health and virtue signal about them and how important mental health is, no longer care about mental health or suicide, because to them, everything is COVID. And if not a COVID death, no one gives a damn. No one cares. All this reveals the real reason why state governors want to keep schools closed at children's expense, and by extension, their families' expense. They screwed up, they did not do a cost-benefit analysis, and they want this issue to be a political wish issue because 2020 is an election year. And children are used as expendable and disposable pawns because they don't speak up and they don't vote. And they can't vote because they're under 18. Most people in real life, regardless of what you see and hear on social media, want schools to open. They want their children to go back to school so they can be with their friends again, so they can learn, because they feel that virtual interaction and instruction is a poor substitute. And many feel that their teachers are not using virtual instruction at the first. They're using it as busy work, where they spend 6 to 7 hours enjoying themselves, sitting in front of TV, or using Twitter all day. Again, it's very clear that state governors, in their rush to lock down their states and residents, did not make a cost-benefit analysis on whether these lockdowns were worth it. And it's very clear that the lockdowns, especially in schools, are a total failure. And because people on CNN, social media, and state governors want to use children as pawns as their own agenda, it's very clear that they do not really care about children or their children's future at all. And the solution to this growing youth suicide problem is not more suicide hotlines, it's reopening schools fully. And if parents are still afraid to send their children in, they should have the option not to send them in and have their coursework mailed to them. All schools, public and private, must be reopened, with attendance voluntary for parents who still feel that their children could get sick. My name is Indy JKOK. If you like this video, please give it a like, comment, and share. And let's end these lockdowns entirely.